everybody else is silent, weeping, just like I got my hand over my mouth, tears in my fucking eyes, and I don't usually cry at anything. And Mike's just over on the other side of Tom. No!
He literally
No!
was. Yep.
Wow.
And he was crying too. I heard like sniffles
Yeah.
inside.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's anyway, guys, welcome to Your Boom is in the Shot. We're doing a roundtable on Endgame.
Yes.
Ooh.
So today
Endgame.
we've got a couple of cool guests. We have our friend Sara
Hello.
and our other friend Odie. They're fans of the show, and they've come on to talk about Endgame with us. And I think it's going to be a hell of a ride.
Yeah, and real quick, some housekeeping, because we keep forgetting to do this most of the time. You can find us on Instagram at yourboomisintheshot. Just yourboomisintheshot, no spaces, no, well, there's no spaces in handles anyway, but no underscores, none of that crap, just yourboomisintheshot. And you can also find us on YouTube at yourboomisintheshot. We also are on yourboomisintheshot.simplecast.com and everywhere you find your podcasts if you want to listen to this on podcast services. Yeah. So that's the quick, just a little housekeeping.
Yep, and you can email us at yourboomisintheshot.gmail.com.
Yep.
At gmail.com.
Yep.
Well, every time I'm like, I'm going to say the right one this time, and I never do.
Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome. So I think we should just get right into it, get back to the conversation we were having. We were talking about rude people in the movie theater.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Yeah, no, I had the rudest movie-going experience I've ever had. So I went to Colony Center in Colony, New York this time. I usually don't go there because I live like closer to Saratoga Springs, so I go to the theaters up there, which are actually nicer anyway. But for the sake of being here, because this is in Albany, it was closer, I went to Colony Center. And the thing about Colony Center that's different than really any of the theaters I've been to in the area is that you buy this specific seat at Colony Center. You buy the seat
do
in
that
the row.
Crossgates now too.
Yeah. Oh, do
Yeah.
they? Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've been there, but at least Colony Center does it. And so the seat that I got, it was like right in the middle in the center. It was a pretty good
perfect
seat, right?
seat. Yeah.
It wasn't like on like the bar, which is where I like to be in that row, but it was like, 4 rows back from it.
Close enough.
Place was packed, as I expected it to be. It's
Right.
Endgame. But basically, I go to sit down, and there's a woman like to the left of like the seat I was sitting in, and she was like, all right. I mean, she's like taking up the whole armrest and coughing up a storm, but I didn't care. I was like, whatever, we're just here to have a good time. And so this like 60-year-old guy then walks down the line. First of all, kicks my feet out of the way, and then sits in the seat, pushes my keys out of the cup holder, and then shoves my arm off the rest with his arm.
Oh, wow.
Like
What
this.
the heck?
And I went, fuck you, dude. I got up, I grabbed my shit, and I like brushed past him without saying excuse me, went down like several rows past, and I sat in the back row of like the front part of the theater.
Wow.
There was nobody in my row. I got
Jeez.
right in the center, and I was just looking up at the
It's
screen.
like, fuck, I'd rather be there than...
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame you, dude. It's kind of funny because I went to see it this afternoon, and there was like maybe 6 people in the theater. Now, I went to a local theater, the Spectrum 8. It's pretty small, and I actually kind of liked it. The screen was a little bit smaller, the room was a little bit smaller, and I think that there was just a little hint of definition that you don't get on the big
Mine was like
big
the
screen.
RPX one too.
Oh, I wanted to screen that one, but I couldn't make it to Colony Center. Or I couldn't be certain I would make it to Colony Center in time to see it. But funny thing about the small theater, we had a bunch of people who were really quiet, like they were going to see a movie, like I was always raised to never make any noises during a movie, right? And we've talked about this before, is that there's something that happens with the Marvel movies where people
don't shut up.
and they want to be they want to be involved in they want to be involved in the movie because there's just some way that those, I don't know what it is. There's an aura about them, a culture about them, but there was a kid sitting behind me, and mind you, there's this theater maybe sat like 100 maybe, and maybe less, maybe more, like between 50 and 100, and there was maybe like 10 people there, and there was this one kid behind me, and he was watching that movie like he was in a theater with like 200 people who were doing the same thing that he was. So like everybody was quiet except him. So he laughed at all of the terrible jokes, and he clapped when the people came on, and he was like, "Oh shit!" when when all of the heroes started coming out of the portals, and I hope that's not a spoiler because it doesn't really mean anything.
I had this kid when I saw Infinity War who was sitting right behind me, and he was like kicking the chair, and every time Spider-Man was on screen was like, "Spidey, pew pew."
Oh, that's awful.
Hey, at least you had the bad kids. I had a kid when I went to see Infinity War who turned to one of his friends as the false stop where the mid-credit scene should have been and said, "That was the first movie I've ever seen without a happy ending."
Well, that's weird. That's weird.
I mean, it's a pretty unhappy ending. It's an ending that you know is going to be undone, but it's
little
unhappy
kids in
nonetheless.
Marvel movies are always like uncharted territory, and it's either going to be an amazing story or a terrible one.
Yeah, I don't know. My kids
It's
are
the
going
bad
to. I'm
parent
going to raise my kids to be even more pretentious about movies than I am.
Is that possible?
Oh yeah, it's possible, Odie. It's possible.
Dude, I swear to God, the first words out of Ben's kid's mouth is going to be mise en scène.
It might be. It might be. No, if everything goes according to plan,
Or
my
Rosemary's
first.
Baby.
Oh God, that's terrible. But a funny joke. Funny joke. No, if everything goes according to plan, my first kid is going to be a girl, and she's not going to give a shit about movies or art or anything because she's going to be the president, and that's all that matters.
President.
Now, my second kid, mind you, my second kid is going to be a boy. His name is going to be Juniper, and he's going to be a sweet little mama's boy. And he's going to stay at home. He's going to be chunky, and he's gonna be really interested in painting and watching movies. And
Wow,
him and his
see a
dad
lot
are going
of
to play video
projection
games
here.
together.
Very specific.
Yes, it is. That's
I
my
like how
future.
you planned all this
No,
out.
I do. My
I haven't even planned out my day tomorrow, and you're like already.
no, that's the only thing I've planned. I planned that because it's a fun fantasy, and
That's great.
You know,
Speaking
I
of
don't
fun
have the ability
fantasies, you guys ready to talk about Endgame?
no, I'm not ready to talk
not
about
yet,
ending.
not yet.
With you guys.
You guys still want to talk about your rude experiences?
Yeah, do you have any, Sarah?
No, I mean, aside from just people talking basically the whole time during the movie.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say it must be, if you haven't, it must be because you're the rude one. But
Obviously.
but
She may have been
Can't
with the
name a
rude
rude
one.
person in the
then,
Marvel
then
theater.
you're the
you were
rude.
the rude
You were
person.
the rude person. Yeah.
So
You caught me.
allow me
All
to
right.
bail you out. She wasn't necessarily the rude one, but she may have been with the rude one because.
Valid.
Yeah, you were
As-
saying your friend Mike was drunk.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
so
like
we
what the
had
heck was that about?
we had a couple friends over, and then one of my friends sort of invited himself to come with me and
that's the
Sarah and
worst.
a member of our band. And
He's nice though.
as I was saying earlier, there were 3 audience interactions for this entire movie. A standing ovation when Spidey showed up.
Yep.
The entire black population of that theater and me saying the Wakandan war chant back when
Yep.
it happened.
I like the "and you" part. You know that every white person in that theater was doing the same goddamn thing.
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, then you must have went to a really shitty theater.
Yeah.
Okay, the theater we
And-
were at only had probably like 15 people in it. It wasn't even
It-
packed at all.
Damn.
It
I mean,
wasn't packed.
There was substantial, but it was like half the theater.
I wish I went to you guys' showings because,
Yeah.
like, getting back to what Ben was saying,
11:30 on a Saturday.
A lot of
though.
Yeah, he
times-
decided to go at 11:30.
that's weird because it's opening weekend too. But like, a lot of times I like a packed theater, especially in like a horror movie. But I hate packed theaters for Marvel movies.
I do too.
Oh,
for
yeah.
the reasons you were getting
Yeah.
at.
This is why I'm glad I didn't see like Guardians for a month after it came out or Ant-Man
When I
and
saw
the Wasp.
Guardians 2, I was the only person in the whole theater. The
That's
first time I
awesome.
saw it, the only person.
You know what's really funny? Most of the Marvel experiences I've had have been like that. There have been precious few where I've been there at opening weekend with a lot of people, and I think it's because after watching the first Avengers, I realized I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
It was like,
Yeah.
don't go during opening week
And
because
this,
Yeah,
So
for that
the
reason.
reason I feel like Sarah was with the annoying person and not the annoying person herself. The only other time anybody says anything during that entire
like,
movie. Spoiler alert, not that you're going to be watching this if you haven't seen it. So, Tony Stark is in the middle of dying. He's just sitting there, Peter's over him. Completely emotional moment. Everybody else in the theater's silent, crying, whatever. And the guy's just over there, drunk as shit. No!
Yep.
No!
yeah.
That was my internal monologue, but
No.
That's his
I
external
wouldn't-
His
monologue.
was external.
and my internal monologue was, "Yep, saw that coming." I mean, you're giving TJ's giving me the death stare right now, but it's true.
Yeah.
We had very different reactions to that movie, and I think before we start getting into the depths of it, we should
we should get some general thoughts from everybody.
yeah, and I think I'll start it off since I think I'm the black sheep of the group here, and you guys know what's coming. I didn't think it was as good as the rest of them did. Whoa! Yeah, right. Odie's surprised, but I'm going to tell you what. I thought the movie was good. I thought it was great, even.
That's a
and,
first.
And I
So
think
this
that's
is a feat for Ben, honestly.
Well, I thought it
This
was
is
really
progress,
good.
Ben. I'm really proud of you.
Screw you, TJ. But I thought it was really good, and a lot of the problems that I've had with other Marvel movies didn't rear their ugly head in this one. I thought it was really tastefully done. I thought it was really tactfully written. There are plot holes, but there are plot holes in every Marvel movie, and at this point, you have to take the good with the bad, and I think there's a lot more good than there is bad. So that's my first impression.
Okay. Odie?
Since you mentioned plot holes, I'm going to start off with the fact that I got a theory for literally everything in those to the
God.
point where I should name my first kid Matt Pat. But No, I will say that I was genuinely moved by this movie in a way that I don't think I've been since my first run through when I watched the first Iron Man for the first time.
Hashtag relatable.
I was
Hashtag not relatable.
I don't cry in general. I would if I could, but I can't help it. And I was still to the point of sobbing when Tony Stark was meeting his end.
I did when Black Widow was too.
See, and I'm with you, Odie. I was much more emotional about Iron Man than I was about Black Widow. When that
I'm not going to pretend it's not emotional, but it's not. I have been identifying with Tony Stark for a solid 3-4 years.
Black Widow in the moment is like really heartbreaking, but then afterward in context, it's not because of the plot hole. Because if you could bring back old Gamora, why can't you bring back old Black Widow? But whatever.
Like, I also just don't care about her character because she hasn't had any decent screen like action. Like all she is a hot girl to punch things to me.
You'd be giving a shit if the Solo movie came out already, but unfortunately the timing is garbage.
And like I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit more later, but like it's just like I was telling you earlier before the podcast, Ben, like for me, like I've been living with these characters for so long, and we all have. Like I feel like I've grown up with them.
I mean,
so
me
to
too.
like even just to lose Black Widow, especially to lose somebody like Iron Man or Cap, but even just to lose Black Widow, it's like I felt like I lost, like it was like a death in the family.
Oh yeah,
like, I lost somebody that was like part of my life.
Yeah, and I think and for me, I lost the warm rose-colored glow of Marvel movies a long time ago, and I grew up with them too. I mean, I remember watching Iron Man in middle school, and that being my first exposure, not including The Dark Knight, which was an all separate experience, but my first exposure to the superhero genre that we know today, and I loved it, and I've always loved superheroes. I grew up with comic books. I'm a huge nerd in a lot of ways, but for me, I guess my taste in film led me down a different path. And what I noticed really quickly was that there was this element of nostalgia that was the main draw of a lot of the Marvel movies. Not all of them, and some of them are really well written and really well
it's like,
produced.
For me, I break it into the pre-Guardians era and the post-Guardians era. Because that's when they really started leaning into it.
Right, with the Guardians on. Yeah, I agree. And that's also around the time that I became sort of disenfranchised with the whole MCU, and it I think I went in a different direction, so it wasn't really for me. But one of the things that happened as a result of that is that I don't have the same kind of emotional connection that you do. I mean, like, I felt really emotional in some parts of this movie, but I think that was because of how well the movie sort of dealt with all of the other movies in the series and how the writing of this movie because I think, like I said, I think it was a really good movie. Do I think it's the best movie ever written? No, I even still think Black Panther beats this one for me, but I do think Endgame is a very close second.
It's still a high bar because you love Black Panther.
I do.
So
I very much love. Yeah, right. It is, and that's what as much as I might not like it compared to you guys, you were talking about how you came in and how it was such an emotional experience for you, and I was like,
like I also told you, I think I'm still in a fragile emotional state from last night's Game of Thrones, which was the Battle of Winterfell, because this won't air until a little while later. But
rip in peace to all the Starks this weekend.
It's really
not
funny.
All of the Starks.
What a funny thing for you to say, Odie. We're gonna try to not do any Game of Thrones spoilers.
Don't take that as spoilers. Odie doesn't actually watch Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
I've never seen it in my life. Don't trust me.
And
another podcast.
TJ was just making a joke with the whole "not all of the Starks" thing, but I am going to say that both of us are huge Thrones fans, and I had the reaction to last night's episode of Game of Thrones that you had to Endgame.
I had that reaction to last night's episode too.
Well,
I also had that reaction to Endgame.
Didn't have that reaction to Endgame.
And I'm shook to my core right now, guys.
No, I bet. And I know that if I had been less cynical and less critical of the MCU as a whole, and I was able to appreciate it the way you did, then I'd be in the same boat as you, like completely shattered emotionally. Like so much stuff has happened.
How about you, Sarah? Because I don't think anybody know your opinions on this going.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
That's the thing. I think my opinion's going to be so different than anybody's here, considering I've only watched the Marvel movies before this movie.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
So I saw Black Panther.
That's a good one.
And I saw the Spider-Man Homecoming.
So you don't know what the bad MCU movies are like.
You
haven't
saw this
been
without
to-
seeing Infinity
So
War.
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And before seeing this movie, I was like, should I even see it? Doesn't make sense to, right? No, but
At least she knows.
but I did because Odie's like, let's go at 11:30 p.m. I'm like, sure, let's go. And
Because I'm a dumbass.
I will
Okay.
say that even though that it was some parts were hard to follow, obviously. A lot of the context was not there for me. I still really, really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
And some people wouldn't think so because it's like, why would you even like it if you're not watching all of them through to get all the context?
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
still I got emotional during some parts too.
Well, and this goes
So-
back to what
Testament, though.
TJ and I were talking about. So, one of the reasons why I'm willing to say this movie was good was because it's like TJ and I talk about it all the time. A good movie stands alone, and it's a good movie regardless of the movies around
Yeah.
it. And this movie is a good movie regardless of the movies around
And that
it.
proves it.
Exactly. Even if you might
Yeah.
not have the same level of reaction.
It's weird though because like what we were also saying earlier is that and this is before I knew like that you hadn't seen really any of the movies before this. As I was saying that like this movie as well as Infinity War, they so rely on you to know the context. They
Yeah.
rely on you to
Exactly.
have to know who Ant-Man is, know who Spider-Man is, know who Doctor Strange is.
But
and
the
be
movies
familiar.
are so simple. I mean, every superhero movie is a
Yeah, I
simple.
mean, most of the
formula
characters
and
break
easy
down to a
follow.
very simple set of ideologies,
Yeah.
or like a very simple, character type, right? And so you can follow it enough, I think, and that's a testament to how it
Yeah.
stands on its own. But I'm surprised because honestly, like my reaction would be like most people coming into this movie who don't really know the context would be like, I don't care about this and I can't follow it. So like, I don't know. I think that's points for this movie is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I agree.
It's entirely
Yeah.
dependent on what it is, too, because when I went to see Infinity War, there was literally nobody else around to see it, aside from my aunt's 57-year-old ex-boyfriend who had never seen a Marvel movie in his
That's
life.
really bizarre.
Did you like it?
He went out for 3 smoke breaks in a 2.5-hour movie, but he said it's the best movie he's ever seen.
Well,
Interesting.
there you have
Which
it.
is
man.
why I feel like
that movie sucks.
Maybe that's just an asshat.
Maybe I am just an asshat,
Maybe
but
it's
I
just
still
Mal
stand
being
by the
Mal.
fact
I
that
have no
I think
idea.
that Avengers Infinity War was a shitty movie.
So here's another point for Endgame, right? I enjoyed Infinity War for what it was, problems and all.
even if it was terrible.
all the problems that I recognize, which we've talked about at length on our previous Marvel Roundtable. But this movie I thought was so amazingly good that like I don't even know if I can watch Infinity War again because it makes Infinity War look like an awful, atrocious.
I feel like
it makes it look worse, but I don't feel like it makes it look bad, though.
No, it does. All right, so Odie, here's the thing, right? The movie looks bad on its own, but people are willing to forgive it because their favorite people are in it, their favorite characters, their favorite universe. But I'm going to tell you what, Endgame is a good movie, and when you put them next to each other, it's clear that Avengers Infinity War is not. And that, I mean, maybe I could catch a lot of flack for saying that because I know there's a lot of people who might be listening to this and thinking, but I like Infinity War. Well, if you've seen Endgame,
I mean, you can
are
also
really
like
gonna tell
movies
me-
without thinking
yes,
without
that
them
they're
being good
amazing. Yeah,
necessarily.
right. I like shitty movies. There are
Yeah.
plenty of shitty movies that I like, but like, I'm not gonna think of any off the top of my head because that's
Well, but
a
like we talked
digression.
about this earlier, like I'm never going to
Yeah.
sit up and say like Ant-Man and Guardians 2 are perfect movies because they're far from it, but I love them.
And and we're actually talking about this. This is kind of an interesting digression that I think is valid for this topic. But we were talking about Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and my first reaction to Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is that I liked it more than Guardians of the Galaxy 1, and everybody was like, "What? That movie was so bad," and I was like, "I know, but it was fun to watch."
Yeah.
And the first one was just trying to nostalgia bait me. At least this one isn't trying to be a serious movie. Like,
Well, the first one was also an hour and a half to 2 hour long commercial for Chris Pratt.
yeah, I know, and I don't like Chris
And
Pratt.
the whole
so
world bought it.
It's true.
So-
It's true. And I was never a Chris Pratt guy. It's not that I don't. I shouldn't say I don't like him. I've never enjoyed immensely any of the movies or shows that he was in. Like I wasn't a big Parks and Rec person.
Yeah.
Not because there's anything wrong with Parks and Rec, but just because I never really got into it. And if it was ever a choice between The Office and Parks and Rec and that whole documentary humor comedy show style, I was always an Office person.
Yep.
And when the only other movies that I can think about him being in, I was never really a big fan of, like Jurassic World or that one that he was in
Yeah.
with what's her name, the space one.
He
was in it with
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence, yeah.
Oh, that movie was
one.
awesome. What
I
was the
know
name of that
exactly
movie?
what you're talking about,
loved
but I
that
can't
movie.
remember.
I remember starting it and being like,
Yeah.
"This is an interesting science fiction,"
But I can't remember. The
but I
name
don't
of it, so
remember
guess
anything about it.
says-
Yeah, but like that's what
Exactly.
I
I just
mean.
remember really enjoying it. I don't know.
It's like the stuff I read in Brit Lit. Oh, this is good. Let's forget all of it.
Like British literature?
Yeah.
I am a huge fan of English, like historical English literature, but that's a digression we don't need to get into. But yeah, so anyway, I just thought that was worth saying because it you can like Infinity War, and I'm sure a lot of you do, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't want you to take it personally when I say that I think it's a bad movie, because I do think it's a bad movie.
Listen, I've seen it 9 times and it has more bad things than good.
It does, and it's you're valid. If you like Infinity War and you're out there, you're valid. I also think you're wrong, but you're valid. But you're valid.
Of all the ways for you to be an asshole about that, Ben, that's probably the best way to go about it.
Hey, listen, I try to be honest.
I don't think he's being an asshole. I think he's just being brutally honest.
Yeah, and that's how I look at it. You know, I'm not going to mince my words. I'm not going to stifle who I am. That's how I feel, and I also like other people, and I don't want to upset other people.
Yeah.
And I think that other people have a right to feel the way that they do.
And so to that whole point, and I think Endgame continues that, although, on the scale, it's way tipped farther toward the good side.
I agree,
right?
yeah.
But I think, just my own personal anecdote is like, listen, let's just be completely honest here. Like, Endgame, also not a perfect movie. And like, if you're out there saying Endgame's a perfect movie, you're just wrong.
Yeah.
If you could say it's an amazing movie, you loved it, you had so much fun, you felt all the feels. Like I was saying to Ben earlier before the podcast, like this movie made me feel things I didn't know like media was capable of making me feel. And I say that as somebody who like
that level
lives
of
for
catharsis.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And like I live for Game of Thrones too, but like this was incredible. Like I don't cry at things like the same as Odie, and I cried several times.
You know what's really funny?
I had goosebumps the whole third act. Like it was just mesmerizing in every way. But it's not perfect. And there are problems. And this movie is riddled with plot holes.
Yeah,
that's the biggest problem.
Gonna get there.
Right out the gate.
We're gonna get there.
So that's just that's my quick that's what I think of.
You know what's really funny, TJ?
What?
You talk about you're like this stoic, white guy. Like you've got this like machismo-ness about you. You don't cry. You're not like super emotional. I'm like not that way at all.
I'm a man's man.
I'm super like I water. I
too many manwiches.
Yeah, no, and I'm not like that. Like I cry at movies all the time. I'm a baby. We screened this movie in a class called Kit Bull. If you haven't seen it, it's not really a movie. It's a short film. It's an animated film, and I've seen it twice now. And every time I see it, I bawl like a little baby. Like it's just like so emotionally like heartfelt and heartbreaking and like warm and like painful. And it's like 7 minutes long. So like if I can bawl like a baby from a 7-minute animated video, I think it's interesting that I didn't have the emotional response that you did.
Maybe you were also still emotionally fragile from Game of Thrones.
I'm going to tell you what.
Guarded. You were
I
can't cry.
I was
again.
shaking. No. I mean,
hours.
I was shaking after my first screening of the new episode of Game of Thrones. Like I walked upstairs because I screened it in the basement of my mother's house. Which I'm not a bum. Okay, I'm just like in between apartments right now.
Now that we clarify.
Also,
all right. No, I move into my new place on Friday, but. So I watched it in the basement on my 4K monitor, computer monitor. I streamed it on HBO Go, and I walked upstairs to my stepbrother who had just started watching it on our TV, and I was like shaking, and he was like, "Wow, it was that good, huh?" We could hear you gasping from downstairs, and I was like, "I have to go take a shower." That's exactly what I did.
I will say though, that is the only way I feel like anybody could effectively, accurately say that Endgame is a perfect movie, because it's not a perfect movie in terms of plot holes and writing, because it really isn't. But Endgame is a perfect movie in that it does the job it's meant to.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect wrap up to the story that this has been telling. We're as close to perfect as possible. I said this to Ben earlier before the podcast. There's a lot of things I said to Ben before the podcast. But one of them was that I think this is like, I don't think you could have done much better with what they were given. With the lore they were handling, with the stories that had come before them, with just wrapping up so many disparate characters' plot lines and doing it in a way that was satisfying and emotionally resonant, at least for the most part. I think they completely stuck the landing, and I think there's little nitpicks and there are maybe plot holes that could have been touched up. Yeah. But I think on the whole, this could have gone so much worse than it did.
I was expecting it to go a lot worse than it did. And I don't think it could have gone much better. I agree. I think this has reached the pinnacle of its potential of what this movie could have been, which is commendable, because any movie that has reached the pinnacle of what it could be is history worthy. I mean, I like to think of like Lord of the Rings. I mean, that's a great movie, but I like to think of Star Wars. Yeah. I think The Empire Strikes Back is at the pinnacle of what it could have been at the time. And I think that's proof by all of the George Lucas edits that have ruined it in the eyes of the fans. But
and then you see like the despecialized editions,
and you're like, oh wow,
we're really trying to restore that movie to its glory,
right? And I think that like movies like that are worth remembering. If you watched a movie and think, I don't see how that could be much better,
right? That's another pivotal moment in cinema.
Right. And whether you like the movie or not, I mean, I think it's kind of bland, but I also think that it's an amazing movie, and the graphics. We talk about CGI a lot, but like the CGI in that movie is groundbreaking. There wasn't anything like that beforehand, and that's why it broke box office records, and that's why this movie is breaking.
It's the largest ensemble movie of all time, not just of this franchise, but ever.
Yeah, in general.
Yeah.
I think there is one good test of this, though, and it speaks as to how important this is, and especially how important this is as it is. And that is, if Kevin Feige rebooted the entire MCU right now, would you care enough to go see another Endgame in 10 years? No. Exactly.
I don't know. The thing is, but I wouldn't. Right, 10 years ago, though, we couldn't have imagined Endgame existing.
No, that's true.
Granted, if that imaginary situation did happen, we would have had an Endgame to look back on. But, like, this movie could not have existed 10 years ago. It just couldn't have.
No, absolutely
And, that, again, is a testament to not just this movie, but to the MCU as a whole. For all the problems that any of us may have had, you especially, Ben, it's gotten here on its own legs. It's gotten here because the movies are creative, in their own ways.
It got here with the brunt force of billions of dollars.
Yes. But great characters and great acting for 95% of it, and writing that was ranged from passable to amazing.
Yeah.
And they've just, what I'm saying is they've gotten here from their bootstraps and billions of dollars. But they're here, right? This movie exists. I know I'm kind of tangenting a little bit here, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you just want to justify.
I love this movie, okay?
He has a reason to justify it.
I will go to war. I will go back in time, and I will undo all of your negative opinions.
I don't want to, like...
You're going to go back in time, grab all 6 stones, and then just punch Ben in the face with all
the plot holes. He's going to punch me with all the plot holes, all the time travel.
I'm going to be like, listen, buddy.
Hey, man, save the stone grabbing for after the show.
We got to talk about Jon Snow.
Yeah, wow.
His big mountains of snow.
Yeah, wow. Anyway,
that's an inside joke about Ben and I talking about how hot Kit Harington is.
Kit Harington is pretty hot.
Yeah.
Speaking of stone grabbing, by the way, can we just talk about that first Thanos death? Because that will fuck you up.
I don't know how that has anything to do with stone grabbing, but yeah, that was pretty fucked up.
Well, because they go for the stones, right? And like he's like, they're gone. I destroyed them, and it almost killed me. But, just the fact that they like go and they just immediately like cut his head off was like.
No, not they. Thor immediately
well, they go to
cuts his head off.
Thor cuts his head off.
Went
and then
for
he's
the head.
Really scarred by it. Yeah, and that's one of those great moments. I was talking to Ben about this earlier, where he's like, "What'd you do?" I went for the head, and it was like one of those little things where it's like paying. It's like
it would be perfect if it wasn't a callback.
But that whole scene, I think, is like a reference to like because they're having this little moment where they're like when they first get like Iron Man back and everything, and they're like the fallout of like losing everybody. And it just happened like 3 weeks earlier, and they're like, "Yeah, we fucked up. We should have done this. We should have done that. Like we screwed up. We lost." And I think like a lot of that was like the stuff that fans have been pointing out for the whole last year. Granted, like they shot these movies back to back and presumably wrote them too. So unless a lot of this is rewrites, this was already intended. But still, problems that people had were things like, "Yeah, why didn't he just go for the head? Why didn't they just cut his arm off?" Like instead of like trying to pull the glove off. And so what do? They show up, they immediately cut his arm off. Like they learned right from their mistakes right then and there. And then Thor's like, "I'm just going to kill him. Like I'm just going to do it. Like I'm not going to live with like that mistake any longer. I'm just going to do it. Doesn't make any difference in the wider plot." No, but for his character, it was like, yeah, we did it. And it was like, so guys, so all that stuff's off the table. All the complaints about Infinity War. All right, shut up. We're doing a whole new thing now.
Yeah.
And that like just completely wiped the board and was like, this is a different movie.
And I think what is great about Endgame is how much they did that. Not just from Infinity War, but from the whole MCU, like every movie that led up to Endgame, they have improved upon aspects of in this film.
Like the human element is the other thing, right? Yeah. And that starts off cold open, the immediate first sequence of this movie. You see the human element of the tragedy of just a guy, and obviously it's Hawkeye, right? But in that moment, he's just a guy in his backyard with his family having a nice lunch, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to the whole world. And it's like almost like the leftovers for a scene, Right. It's like what happens.
Since you mentioned that human element, how about that Joe Russo cameo? Like that seems like the most human
these are guys
these movies
sitting
will
around
ever
a table
get.
like at like a grief talk. Like,
Right.
like this has hit people, and then you see it in like how Tony reacts by going and like, starting a family and being like, I'm not, going back into the fray. Like, this is my second chance. And you see it in the unspoken words between Tony and Peter when they first reunite. And he's like, I miss you kind of thing. And, there's a lot of these beautiful moments.
I think where it's the
Ant-Man
most
seeing his daughter.
Yeah. But where I think that, just talking about the improvements on writing and the improvements on character, Cap is the real capstone. He's where it is most prevalent. And you guys might know I hate Captain America Civil War. It is my least favorite of every
I think he's only
MCU
said that
movie.
about 501 times
Yeah,
on this
right.
podcast.
It's a constant remind. I'm constantly reminded, mostly because I'm constantly surrounded by dudes who love Marvel movies and specifically love Captain America Civil War for whatever godforsaken reason.
Despite the fact that Captain America is a shitty character to begin with.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So to begin with, I agree with you. He's a shitty character, and I have been spouting that for years. But I'll tell you what, he's an amazing character in Endgame.
Yeah, well, because one of the things that's made him like a shitty character is a lot of things, but I think one of the big things is that like he's always been so stuck to his guns, and so like I know the right thing to do. I'm going to do the right thing, even if it's like not necessarily like the best thing for everybody else, or if it's like misguided and too idealistic. And in this movie, he doesn't force his like ideas or views at all ever. Like his
And the movie doesn't try, and the
No.
film doesn't try to make it like doesn't force it like
Every
it's the way
time
it should
somebody
be.
calls him out, which is usually Tony,
Yeah.
they're like, you fucked up. You didn't listen to me. You guys should have listened to me. We lost. Like, you made this mistake. You did this. And every time he just either listens or he's like, yeah, you're right. I did.
I think
fucked
that
up. We
I think
lost."
that Captain America has finally matured to the level of Tony Stark, which is one of the frustrating things about Captain America Civil War is that one, they sort of dematured Tony Stark for that movie so that they could have a stupid plot.
You killed my mom.
Yeah, he became the smartest guy in the world, became the most irrational character in the movie after Captain America. But they pinned Captain America or pegged him as if he was the right ideology, right? And that was always one of my problems with that movie is that they took a sort of abstract idea and they were like, this is the way it should be and this is the way that it is and Captain America is right. And in Endgame, they really kind of went back on that and they were like, all right, well, Captain America, that personality trait that he has is one of the reasons why they lost. Right. And Tony sees it and Tony calls him out right in the beginning of the movie. He says, you weren't there. You're a liar and you left us. And Cap is like, shit, you're right.
Yeah.
And for the first time in the entire MCU, I felt like that character actually has a personality. Like and he takes credit for it for the rest of the movie. He's responsible for the things that he's done in the past movies, and he strives to be a better character.
And that's why he's worthy.
Especially because, and I don't know if you guys picked on this, but no, you probably, half the conversation when Tony first gets back and he's talking about what happened is directly from Age of Ultron. They're talking about a suit of armor around the world, the reasons
Tony said he was right the whole time. And
then he also references Civil War when he's like, you guys didn't want to do that because you were so worried about,
freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said, what does freedom mean now? Half the world is dead because of you.
Yep.
Because you wouldn't listen to what the perfectly reasonable and rational thing that I said.
And again, Cap is just like, yeah.
And that's
right.
For all of my complaining about Civil War, one of my biggest problems with it was that it didn't have the whole X-Men to make Captain America's side of the argument seem valid. So to me, Captain America's freedom argument always seemed like lukewarm. But they pegged it in that movie as if it was the right thing to do. It was morally superior. So I always was frustrated by that. And in this movie, they acknowledged that was a problem in however subtle a way. Tony says, your petty squabbling about freedom, which ultimately would have no impact on your lives or the lives of any other citizens of the world other than improving them, is one of the reasons why we lost to Thanos. Mm-hmm. And I think that them doing that has added so much more maturity, not only to the writing, but to the characters. And I give them a lot of kudos for
and
it.
that's part of what I was saying, in action of like them wrapping up these characters in satisfying ways. Because the two characters that they really have to wrap up, put a bow on, and send on their way are Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. Yeah. And they do it. And that's Steve right there. And then Tony is in him, like, it's in that moment I was telling you, that beautifully shot moment of him in the house with Pepper by the fire, saying, I could put this all in a lockbox and throw it at the bottom of the lake. And just, I don't have to do this. I don't have to do this, and go to bed. And she's like, but could you rest? Yeah. And then, he's no. And like, he doesn't say that, but you think that, yeah. And so then by the end, when he saves the day, he gives all to save everybody. And then she says, it's okay, Tony. You can finally rest.
Well, and I think that Tony's been redeeming himself since Iron Man, right? Since the very beginning of the MCU.
And especially since Ultron. Because he especially really regrets Ultron.
Yeah.
Or at least the way that it went, not necessarily the ideology behind it.
Iron Man 3, I feel like he's redeeming himself for it, too, because all these callbacks about him resting are going back to that one scene in which Pepper basically almost gets attacked by the Mark 42. Yeah. It's all... This isn't just him reconciling Ultron or the Civil War. This is him reconciling himself.
Yeah, finally. When it's him being the hero that he was always meant to be, but I don't think ever believed himself to be until the end.
Right, and I think that harkens back to Iron Man 1, is that from his origin story is that the weapons that he made were killing people, and then when he realized what effect he was having on the world, he was so riddled with guilt that he needed to do something. And he's been trying to do something, and he's been fighting those demons for 10 years. And now he's finally gotten to the point where, he could either settle down and get over it, or he can rise to the occasion and he can die like a tragic hero. And that's what he did.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
Yeah, and I think that, so there's the Iron Man, but going back to Captain America, he doesn't just end with accepting that maybe he was wrong in the past. I mean, his character continues to develop through the entirety of this movie in ways that I made this movie made me kind of change my tune about the MCU in a lot of ways. I think that Endgame really answers a lot of my complaints for the other films. And one of the things that I felt was very, very meaningful and touching was that when Steve Rogers goes back in time at the end of the film and decides to stay, I finally felt like, all right, so he's finally where he belongs. And when we see in his time with his people, in a
world that makes sense to him.
Right. And to me, I first of all, I was like, I'm finally glad that it's not you anymore. Like, you don't belong here. And I've always felt like Captain America as Steve Rogers didn't belong. But he didn't.
Well, he doesn't. He literally doesn't.
He literally doesn't. But and I feel like ideologically he doesn't either. And he learned that in this movie and then passed the mantle down to somebody who deserved it.
Yep.
And who I think does belong.
Well, and going off of that, I'm like still really curious about your perspective, having not really seen these movies. Like, how did you feel about like the character development in this movie, like not having the behind stuff, of the previous movies?
That's where I was gonna chime in before, because you guys started talking about like character development, and I was gonna like add that any movie, not even this movie, but any movie that has any sort of character development, it's going to be that much more like powerful and intriguing to a lot of audiences. Maybe it depends how they develop or whatever. But I was wondering if the writers like did that intentionally because it's the last movie. Like, we're going to like for Captain America, like, oh, it's the last one, so we're just gonna.
It is also very much their baby because, with the exception of First Avenger, the Russos have been responsible almost solely for Captain America.
Well, and Marcus and McFeely, the writers of most of the Cap and recent Avengers movies.
One of the biggest complaints I've heard so far is that Cap supposedly steals Peggy Carter's husband, despite the fact that if you look back far enough...
Wait, steals her husband how?
Supposedly that she had a husband and then he went back and married her instead, and he stole her from her husband, the theory.
Right. I mean, I guess that would have to happen, but I don't think in the wider context it even matters.
Yeah. Looking back,
you and your conspiracy theories.
Looking back, it seems like a perfect character arc. Because
speaking of Odie's conspiracy theories, though, Odie, I thought about you during the movie, and Ben did too. Yeah. And like when they went back to 2012 during the Battle of New York, and I was like, Odie
You
was
were
right.
talking. Oh, well, in a
Or
way,
at least Odie
There
was
wa-
onto something.
There was
Yeah.
a connection that was presented by Screen Rant saying essentially, oh, look, that drawing at the beginning of Homecoming, that's like the new Cap suit, and that's Ronan, not Hawkeye. And
it spawned. You were telling us it spawned this whole like conspiracy theory that
saying
Homecoming
essentially
is in a
it's in a
different
post
timeline. Yeah,
Endgame universe.
but that being
Odie
said,
So,
and it is, I guess.
Speaking
but,
of post Endgame,
no, maybe
though,
not.
like,
Endgame
Homecoming
takes place in 2023.
Oh, yeah,
All Marvel
so it's
movies
not.
now going to be like 2023
I
and
don't know.
beyond.
Well,
It may or may not,
Ooh,
because
you
like
never know.
Black Widow, you don't know where that's going to be, like 90s, early 2000s. That's been established. But like Doctor Strange 2, you don't know where that's going to be. I don't know how much is
I mean,
consistent
Doctor
with the
Strange
schedule.
could take place 10,000 years ago.
It could take
or
place
10,000
anytime.
years from now. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
It doesn't
Doctor
matter.
Strange.
No,
But anyway, though, back to the theory, just to put a cap on that. Basically, yeah,
Which one?
The one that you were the Back to New York one, the one that TJ and I
Which
were
one?
talking about. Yeah, I mean, we
question.
really have to ask
I
that
got
question
him
when
for
we're
days.
dealing with you.
I can do this all day.
Odie. Anyway,
No, they're
So-
putting comic books in the water to make the frickin' frogs MCU nerds.
okay, Alex Jones.
Oh my god.
So they do go back to New York. It's not. There's no alternate timelines. There are no like them going back to New York has nothing to do with the Screen Rant theory, but it was kind of a funny
Oh no.
coincidence.
Yeah.
What they're saying is essentially there was a Homecoming story that happened that we never got to see. But what this did is like showed us Spider-Man's essential origin story in that this is when he became Spider-Man.
In
After-
this split timeline.
Yeah.
Because they established in Endgame that every time they change
It's
the
still-
past, it splits
yeah.
off into
Yeah.
reality.
It's still like
Well, no, but
2015,
they also
2016 or whenever
They
it
also
is, but-
established that the split timelines cease to exist because they put the Infinity Stones back.
Right. Yep,
So,
that's
like,
true.
it's irrelevant.
Yeah, that's the whole reason why he goes back at the end.
Yeah.
But no, with the Cap and Peggy Carter thing, what I was saying, and this is probably one of the only things I enjoy about the Captain America movies, they've been laying subtle hints as to Steve going back to begin with. Like, anytime Peggy's shown, like she has in her hospital room in Winter Soldier, 1,000 pictures of her kids, family, whatever. Not a single picture of her husband.
Well, yeah.
Then
makes
when you
sense.
get into her office in 1970, when she would theoretically be married off already and have kids of her own, the only person she has a picture of on her desk is Steve Rogers.
I guess I just took it as she never quite got over him. Like, they were
Yeah.
both, like, the one that got away for each other.
Not
Yeah.
that I have experience with it, but according to a few friends I was talking to earlier who have seen it, the entire idea of the Agent Carter show is that when it ended, she got over him and she found somebody else.
Well, I guess that's
supposedly.
written out of continuity.
Yep.
Well, I mean,
Not that
that's
anybody remembers or cares about Agent Carter anymore, despite the, I'm assuming, amazing show it was, but...
Well, all right. So the thing about superhero movies, and this, I'm sorry, I was a little farther away from the mic. The thing about superhero movies, and this goes for almost every superhero movie, every superhero movie that takes place within a universe, they don't care about continuity. X-Men, they don't care about continuity.
X-Men.
No shit, X-Men don't care.
about
MCU,
continuity.
they don't care about continuity. DC, they don't care about continuity. None of these movies, these superhero
I've
franchises,
gotten that vibe.
Well, yeah. Well,
care
like this
about
movie,
some
this
of them.
movie has zero sense in continuity. It has a amazing number of plot holes with like the time travel logic and like. Oh, Back to the Future is just bullshit. Yeah, so is Endgame.
Well,
It's just a bunch of like wibbly wibbly
all-time
tiny
travel-
whiny bullshit.
and like every MCU movie that's come out, and I appreciate your Doctor Who reference, but every MCU movie that's come out in the past like 10 years has just been like that. It's just been
Yeah.
like bullshit.
But it's still so much fun. It's still so awesome.
and I think in the case of Endgame, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe not every movie. I don't think Black Panther was bullshit, but
I wonder why.
Well, the only part
Wow.
of Black Panther that's bullshit is that final fight between T'Challa
yeah,
and Killmonger. It's
to deactivate
horrendously
his suit
shot
or whatever.
It's really
yeah.
MacGuffin-y. The CG is terrible.
Yeah,
But the rest of that movie is really good.
yeah, no, that's true. And I feel like for an action sequence to not be the best sequence in the movie, like
It's
is
not
totally
like-
irrelevant to me.
But Endgame, right? So like Endgame's like final battle, like even though it gets super chaotic and gets really hard to follow at times, is like amazingly done
It's
from
still
like a
worth
technical
getting super
perspective. And it's still not the best part of the movie. The best part of the movie is the Endgame is the character moments.
I really like the after the scene, like the funeral at the end was really
beautiful with all the panning to the different people who.
And I think it's important that you bring that up, TJ, because I've noticed a tendency that you appreciate those big action scenes more than I do, or that you put more stock in them. I think that
when they're done well, not just in general.
But that's what I mean. It doesn't matter. Like in general, it is in general, because if an action scene is done poorly, you care about it more than I do.
Yeah.
Like
I hate it less than you do.
Yeah.
Well, I think you put more stock in it, because I could watch a movie that has terrible fight scenes, and if the rest of the movie is amazing, the terrible fight scenes mean nothing to me.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But if a movie has amazing fight scenes, like Infinity War arguably has, but the rest of the movie is stupid, or like doesn't make any sense, or has terrible plot holes, or there's no character development, I don't care. It's a bad movie.
I'm also like a big like John Wick guy, which is like there's not even a movie
just
there.
Nothing
it's
but
just Keanu
action.
Reeves being amazing.
Yeah, well, and it's the same thing with like Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim is a movie that has almost no plot, and it's just like, look at the kaiju fighting the giant robots. And
but then the reverse is Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Right, there's no fucking plot. It's just characters being characters,
and that's fun too. And I think that all of these movies have their merits in their extreme. But I think that you run the risk of making a pretty unexciting movie if there's just action.
For sure, you need to have a balance of both, and that's what Game of Thrones has pretty much always gotten right. And that's what I think Endgame gets right.
But I don't think you need a balance of both, because I think you can get away with
a movie like this. I think you do. I mean,
this is a movie that has action, and you can have a movie with no action.
Would have been anticlimactic, like we were talking about earlier, if instead of doubling down and deciding to kill everyone, if Thanos had just been like, you know what, I was wrong, guys, I'm going to leave.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I'm just saying that you can have movies with no action at all.
Yes,
with this though, it's entirely dependent on what section of the action scene you're talking about.
I'm saying that you need to have a good balance. If a movie has both, they need to both be good.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
At least they should be.
And if a movie doesn't have any story or any character, then it needs to be the point, and the action needs to be done really well. And I think that's a lot harder to do than it is. Then first of all, than people think it is.
Yeah.
But second of all, then to get away with a movie that doesn't have any action.
Granted, there's some weird cutting in like some of the more intimate fights, like in the end of this movie, like when like Cap is, first of all, Cap being worthy was amazing, and
I'm not even going to get into that, because I have some really weird
little fight between Cap with Cap and Thor and Tony versus Thanos, with Thanos' little like razor blade snowboard Darth Maul.
Yeah, I hate that thing so much. But that's besides the point. Continue.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there were some problems in there where like I was having a hard time following the action. It felt a little too fast and a little too ridiculous. And then when all the characters are in there, all the logistics of it just makes no sense at all.
It was a little chaotic.
Some stuff just like in some instances, I take issue with the plot of the fight itself. Like, there are some parts, like, let's take Iron Man and Rescue back to back, fighting for the first and last time as husband and wife. You could frame that and call it art, and you could sell that, and it would do amazing. But there are certain things, like, I feel like Captain Marvel was a little too Deus Ex Machina.
But I guess
all right,
for that, it's like it's her character.
Or at least I disagree
it's
with
her
you.
character. It's like it makes sense because
and then there's like
that she would come in and wreck everyone, because Captain Marvel would come in and wreck
everyone.
everyone.
And I don't think that she's a Deus Ex Machina. Like I don't at all, because I think that they wrote her into the plot to be that way. Like she wasn't. It wasn't just like, oh, here's our convenient savior. It was like
she's not all the way, because of course if she was a full Deus Ex Machina, she would have beaten Thanos. But
I don't think it matters. Like I think that her involvement in the universe doesn't feel lazy to me. It feels like exactly what's supposed to happen. Yeah. It feels like she did exactly what she would have done based on how her character was set up.
I mean, most of that third act is a Deus Ex Machina anyway.
And then there's
Deus Ex Machina after Deus Ex Machina. It's
some of that
Gamora
feels,
deciding to side with the good Nebula.
It's just
and
it's
then coming out
convenient writing,
and shooting her former self.
And superhero movies aren't sophisticated, and we have to be candid about that. And I talk about that all the time. It's one of the reasons why maybe I'm not a big fan of superhero movies compared to other genres. I like my movies to be sophisticated. And that's not me trying to be snobby. I just, I've watched enough movies and read enough like literature that I like to be challenged by the films I watch.
I think
these movies aren't.
Movie is sophisticated enough.
I think it's more so than the rest
characters,
of them.
And that's where this movie won me. And that's what I was kind of trying to get at. Is like the action is thrilling, although a lot of it like relies on like how much you love the characters.
Well, and I would argue with you about the sophisticated characters because I think for the MCU they're very sophisticated, but I think for cinema as a medium, I think it doesn't even scratch the surface of
what I mean. Like
sophistication
in less deft hands, this could have been so much worse.
I agree.
There is some stuff that still feels forced, though. Like,
there's a lot of like plot holes in the end. Why is Valkyrie there?
Not even
she didn't die. We just established she was on New Asgard.
Not even specifically plot holes. I mean, like, there is that one moment after Captain Marvel shows up where everybody's going for her, and then basically the entire female cast of the movie shows up.
That was
she's
dope.
Like, we've got her back. It was dope. Mm-hmm. But it also involves specifically the entire female cast of that movie happening to be at that place at that time. Like, you know what? We're about to have a girl power moment. The whole entire cast of
the entire franchise was there.
Oh, no.
There's literally no reason why.
That was so cool. I like that part.
In the middle of...
Odie, I'm going to stop you right here, okay, Odie? So you're a badass superhero woman, right? And you exist in a world where you don't get the same representation as the male superheroes who mostly have their own movies, and you don't.
Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that this isn't something Marvel needed to do.
Let me finish my preaching, Odie. Let me finish, because this is important to say. Okay, I'm going to learn you today.
You do have a point.
So you have your one female hero who has her own movie. She shows up in the nick of time, taking out the giant dreadnought battleship, right?
And then getting punched in the face by the main villain and not even flinching.
All right. Exactly. So you're one of the aforementioned female badass heroes, right? How do you not immediately go, I want to go be where she is. I want to go be with my fucking
motivation, right?
I'm not saying I don't think that we don't need a moment to say, oh, you know what? The guys have been around for too long. Let's let Okoye and Black Widow and everybody else.
What Ben's getting at is there's an in-universe explanation.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the characters are like, fuck yeah. I think it's the exact same way that in Thor Ragnarok, all the Asgardians are like, oh, shit, Thor.
But it does also seem like in the middle of this battle, which is spanning hundreds of thousands of people, all of the main female characters of every movie happen to be in the exact same area at the same time to say, we got her back.
Right? Is they establish that this battle is on this massive scale, and yet it doesn't feel that way in those moments, right? It's like, okay, so like literally where Peter Parker is, and by the way, every time Peter Parker was on screen was just like, oh, yeah.
Amazing. Standing ovation in the theater, as I mentioned.
But like, you know, it's like, oh, he's there, and then like, oh, Valkyrie's right there with him, and then oh, so is Wasp, and why is she there as well? Like, wouldn't that fucking, I don't know. But you know, it's just those little things, right? The logistics are weird, and then the plot holes come into play, right? Like Ben, I was saying to you earlier, like, you know, not only did these people who didn't actually like get vanished in the snap like show up, but they knew in these like presumably like half hours since they undid everything.
And we came up with a weak explanation.
So what had to have happened, because look, they all come through the Doctor Strange portals, right? So what had to have happened was that everybody like came like back to life, you know,
and then immediately Doctor Strange shows up and is like,
yo, guys,
this is what's happening.
Yep, let's get over there.
So
hoorah, Wakanda forever.
Because Odie, that basically sounds like how Spidey explained it.
Yeah, but you know, Odie, I think I understand where you're trying to come from with the whole like all the women coming together. Like it does. There's this suspension of disbelief that's broken by, oh, I see what they're doing here.
Yeah.
They're making a girl power moment.
And it needed to be done, but it shouldn't have had to be done like that.
No, I don't think there was any, I don't think it didn't feel forced to me. It felt perfect to me, right, Odie? Like, for me, there is no way to do that and not get somebody saying, oh, that was forced. You know, there's no natural way unless you have a deus ex machina of all of the characters conveniently being forced into the same position and then deciding, oh, wow, look, all of women are in the same spot. No, they knew what they were doing. And they were making a statement when they did it. It was,
but it still works in the universe. It's one of those things. It's like
exactly.
It's like a lot of the butthurt Star Wars fans being like, "Oh, you had to have a female lead, didn't you?" And it's like, well, no, but we did.
But we wanted to, and it's awesome that we did.
Right.
And I think that this is that moment. It was, you know, nobody complains when, you know, Thor and Captain America do a cool tag team move. Yeah. Why are people complaining that all of the girls are coming together and doing a cool tag team move?
Why are all the guys all taking on Thanos at once? What the hell, guys?
Because I honestly would have just, as opposed to like having that, I would have given Carol Danvers more than 15 minutes of screen time and had her be a bigger part
I would
of this
too, but
whole
she
thing.
also just had her own movie, like very recently.
Fair.
So I think and the same thing happened with the Black Panther. After the Black Panther came out, he didn't get a whole lot of screen time.
So Sarah, lone female on the podcast, care to chime in?
I don't know.
Like girl power, hoorah.
I like Black Widow.
Yeah.
Black Widow is very
Were you
cool.
sad when she died?
Yes.
Yeah, that's valid.
But I was also going to add before, like, just from, like, watching this movie, not having, like, any of the context before, I thought it was very well balanced with how they made the movie. Like, I thought it was very humorous, too. Like, I laughed at, like, a lot of the parts. So, like, between, like, action scenes and comedy and the sad parts, I really, like, experienced a lot of emotion
You know,
in the movie. And
It
that's
was
what I
a lot
really liked
happier
about
than
it.
it easily could have
And
been.
a lot of that is in pacing too. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
this
the pacing
movie
of the
does not
movie.
feel like 3 hours. Like Batman versus Superman felt like
Yeah.
3 fucking
and this
hours.
is
Felt
a
like
great
6
thank you, Sarah. This is a great segue into exactly another point that I needed to make on this episode, which is the humor. And I'm a notorious, I don't like the humor in MCU movies. I don't know how better to say that. Like almost all of them, I just
Thor
think is
in
bad.
this movie is everything you hate, basically.
But he actually enjoyed Thor.
But I actually enjoyed Thor, and you know what?
Fat
and this
Fortnite playing Thor.
right, and you know that was
Taika
probably one
Waititi
of my
playing
least.
himself as a rock monster.
That was probably one of like my least favorite scenes in the whole movie. But you know what? I didn't dislike it. I just
Well, all
was
the situational jokes about like, yo, come on, airbags, or like,
right,
out of the way,
Or
Lebowski.
Lebowski,
Yeah.
So there's a level of cleverness that I thought they achieved in the humor in this movie that felt not only so much more natural than a lot of the forced jokes in past movies, but it was also kind of funny and like witty. And I think there was a little bit of humor to appeal to everyone. Like a big Lebowski joke is a joke meant for dads. Like let's be honest.
That's something that Robert Downey Jr. would say. Just like when Ant-Man comes back from being changed in all of his ages, he's like, somebody peed my suit.
And that's a joke
like,
for
that's
kids.
something Ant-Man
and
would
like,
say.
But yeah, and I think all of the jokes in the movie, they were funny, but they made sense. Like
And there
Smart
was sort
comedy.
of a connection, too. Like, the first thing you guys go to is Lebowski. Let's not neglect that Lebowski himself is in the MCU.
who's
Jeff Bridges is
Oh,
Obadiah
yeah.
Stane.
He was,
who does he play?
He was
Obadiah Stane.
He was Iron
The
Monger.
first ever big bad.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
right.
Wow, Odie, I
Oh,
didn't
really?
even think of that.
Exactly. Let's not neglect the
Pulling
fact
it
that
out of the
Lebowski's
vault.
in the MCU.
Jeez.
Pulling it
I
out of
mean,
the
I've been
vault.
pulling... Sarah can attest because, of course, I was this one asshole in the theater. I have been going all the way back. I bought shawarma specifically to eat
Oh
during
yeah,
the
you were
movie.
talking about that.
And it was worth it. It was absolutely worth it.
I mean, that's an esoteric thing to do.
This is just
but
Captain
hey.
Autistic busting out his ritualistic
all I'm
shit.
going to say is, Hail Hydra.
Yeah, that was a great scene. And all I could do is picture that comic book
comic,
panel,
yeah, what
and I
he
was
was
just
saying,
like,
yeah.
that's such a great.
There are either
reference.
people that are going to love that, there are people that are going to hate that, but nobody's going to neglect it.
So people as a whole really hated the Captain America is part of Hydra arc, even though he wasn't actually.
Yeah. Well, and so much of Captain America, sorry to Ben, not to interrupt you, but
Yeah,
to add
you're
to your
good.
point, is so much of like Captain America going back was like, remember how ridiculous this old Captain America stuff was? Like
Yeah.
when he's like, I can do this all day. He's like,
Yes,
I know
you can do that. I'm not a child
the
anymore.
closest
Please
thing
stop.
he has to a
That is
catchphrase, if any.
America's ass.
Is what?
The closest thing he has to a catchphrase, if any. I could do this all day.
Yeah, but
You're
you
not
know,
Chuck fucking Norris. We get it.
I do think that and this is one of those places where I'm not in the majority like many, but I always thought that the Captain America is actually a superhero Nazi was a really interesting arc.
Yeah.
Especially like it deals with a lot of
It was the most
contemporary
interesting
problems.
thing they've done with his character in a long time, if ever.
I mean,
I
like in the
agree.
comics at least.
Yeah, no, I completely and totally agree. And as much as people hated it, I thought it was super awesome.
People can hate it. Like, think about it. You don't think in 2005 there were people that were saying, so his sidekick from the 40s is back and now he's a Russian serial killer? Yeah, it's weird as shit, but it's going to be worth it.
But people don't care about, Bucky as much as they care
Fuck
about
Bucky.
Cap himself, and
I mean, I'm sure you'd be in Steve's side with that, but still.
and let's be honest, the only sidekick that
I'm on
anybody cares
Tony's
about is
side
not
in everything ever.
Yeah, same here. We're all going to agree on that one. But I will say, nobody cares about the only sidekick anybody cares about is Robin, and he's in a different universe by a different comic book
I
franchise.
care about Ned.
That's a really funny
I feel
joke.
it.
That's a really funny joke.
N-
But hey, that's valid.
Thanks, buddy.
Ned
It's
can
not a
steal
pan
my
shot.
girl
No,
anytime.
it's a pan shot, buddy.
Shit.
But it didn't hit nothing important either.
Okay, that's good.
But that's because it's a pan
Ballad
shot.
Buster Scruggs, guys. Check it out.
Yeah. So you always make fun of me about Rosemary's Baby, but I've noticed that like you bring it up more than I do.
Because
And
it's funny, because you love it so much.
I mean, like, it's good. You know, it's not my favorite movie in the world. I mean, my favorite movie in the world is Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, probably. But like, and I don't even think that's the best movie that I've ever seen.
I don't know. I feel like you need to have a movie that you're a meme for, the way that I'm a meme for like 2001, because I
Space
like
Odyssey,
talk
yeah.
about it all the time.
That's true. You do talk about that a lot.
I mean, if we're gonna talk about memes, my name was almost exclusively Star Wars boy until 4th grade. So
I mean, I'm a big Star Wars fan too. But you know, I feel like if I'm a meme for anything, I'm a meme for disliking Marvel movies.
you're a meme for disliking anything.
True.
I mean, I do get that like stereotypical like hipster treatment. Like, oh, you're just a pretentious asshole if you don't like anything.
There is a permanent
It's like,
SRTV battle between you and Cito, just who can out hipster the other.
well, Cito.
Ben's a real hipster because he's not trying to be a
don't-
hipster.
I mean, if I'm a hipster, I'm a hipster. I'm not going to argue it, but like, because really, when it comes down to it, hipsterism is in the eye of the beholder. So like,
Ben ate the pizza before it was cool, and then critiqued its pepperoni.
we should get that on t-shirts.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, like, I feel like I'm a huge dork. Like, I'm really nerdy. I feel like most hipsters are always trying to talk about like, oh, I listened to the Black Keys, or like, you know, I listened to Queen before the movie, and it's like,
Those people.
yeah, those people, and it's like, you know, fuck you. You listened to Queen as soon as you saw Bohemian Rhapsody.
Congratulations
Don't fucking lie
on
about
your
it.
fantastic
All
Michael
Gen X
Trageser impression.
People.
Well, it's also the same thing as like, you know, like you and I have legitimately grown up with superheroes.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not sure how much you read the comics growing up, but you watched like
Not
a
as
lot of
much as you, but
cartoons, at least,
I
and
was
things like
into
that.
it, yeah.
Right. And so like there's that certain type of person in like our fan community now who like didn't start watching this, like didn't know anything about superheroes till like 4 or 5 years ago, and they're
Yeah.
like, I knew everything about the comics and I grew up.
People
with it,
walking
and
around
I
with their,
love
like,
it so
I
Captain
mean,
much."
America
granted, I'm
shirts
in the same place where I literally did not see a Marvel movie that wasn't the first Avengers or Guardians
Yeah.
until 2 years ago, but I don't pretend to
And,
know
like, yeah, exactly.
everything
So like,
about
listen,
it.
I'm all about inclusion. Like, I'm
Yeah.
happy.
Oh,
that,
yeah.
I'm
No,
happy that people love
gatekeeping
Endgame
is
as much as they do.
terrible. Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I love it, but like, don't bullshit me.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
if you didn't grow up with this
Right.
shit, don't act like you
Well,
did.
and you know, it sucks because this happens in every fandom, but there's a level of gatekeeping. People are really passionate about the content that they like, and they go about it the wrong way. And you know, if you love something, you should be encouraging people to join, not discouraging them. And I think that, you know, this is one of those places where I think there are a lot of people out there who read the comic books like you, but whose reaction to people who haven't is hostile. And I think that's why a lot of people pretend like they were always involved. And I think there's also an aspect of people want to be involved, you know? Like, if you just discovered superheroes and you love them and it's great and you're, you know, defining your personality by it now because you're a young person and you're developing who you are and what you're interested in, I don't think there's anything wrong with being really passionate and going back and rereading the comic books that, you know, your, you know, older brother read when they came out in 1995. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, you know?
There is very much an element of self-awareness, too. Like, I can talk about how I think the possibility of the Illuminati is a thing in Endgame, despite the fact that
Oh,
didn't
you were
happen.
so weird.
But the Illuminati is in the comics
space,
team, not the
though.
actual Illuminati. But
this a
I can
thing?
talk about
No, it's not.
I can talk about
Hydra
like
is the Illuminati.
Yeah.
Confirmed.
Of course.
the Illuminati, as in like the team of Tony Stark and Doctor Strange and whoever else
Oh, the
that took
Secret
the
Avengers?
yeah. The team that took the Infinity Stones one by one and protected them for themselves. But that doesn't mean I can pretend I know everything about that comic arc because I haven't read a fucking issue of it.
I don't know anything about what you're talking about. 'Cause I'm not
Well,
following any
no,
of it.
no, wait. It comes back to what I was talking about before the
team I
podcast.
referred to-
Odie doesn't say the names of anything. He uses
Oh, no.
weird esoteric like substitute
as far
names.
as I know, that team is actually referred to as the Illuminati in the comics.
Oh, I have not read those issues. I
Neither
no
have
idea
I,
what
but
you're
that's
talking about.
what I've heard of them.
I mean,
as.
maybe. I have no idea what you're talking about, but that's not. I mean, I haven't read a lot of the comic books. There are thousands of issues of comics, and
Yeah,
I
I haven't read all of them either.
No, I've read a few of the big arcs. Like I read the
all
Civil
of them.
War, and I read like I read a lot of the X-Men stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not
here
going to
and there.
pretend I know everything, but as far as I know, that's like the storyline that immediately followed up Infinity
Yeah.
Gauntlet, which is what Infinity War was.
Right. I don't know. Whatever. I was all about that Secret War.
But with like
That
Infinity
next three
Wars,
phases
like,
war.
Where the hell Adam Warlock at though? Warlock.
Yeah. Oh my God, Adam Warlock. You know,
Still waiting, gun.
I think that like Disney is just too conservative. You know, it took them like over a decade to have a female-fronted hero.
Took them like almost a year to rehire James Gunn when they shouldn't have fired him in the first place.
What did they fire him for?
Because 9
bunch
years
of old
ago he
tweets.
made some joke tweets when he was a shock comedian.
Despite the fact that was essentially his sense of humor.
You made pedophile jokes that we totally didn't know you made, when we hired you. Like, come on. Like Disney,
that's his entire film resume.
So I wrote an article about this for the Chronicle where they were he used to that was this whole thing. Like he had this TV show called like PG porn, and it would be like these porn setups of like one episode was like this guy who was like a mechanic, and like this woman couldn't pay for it, and she was like, "But I can pay you with something else," and he's like, "Nope, cash credit only." And it was like that's the joke,
right?
And and he made like a lot of like B horror movies like Slither and stuff like that, with like Michael Rooker, who's been like a long stand in his stuff. And so that was his thing, is he said shocking jokes, and like that was part of his shtick. And like what I said in my article is basically like there's no fucking way Disney didn't know when they signed up for it.
And it's
they just
not
figured
worth
it was
losing
years
James
ago,
Gunn
so
over.
whatever. He's a really talented director. He's a great storyteller. He has unique style, right? And so they were like, probably thinking whatever, and then he started talking shit about Trump and the conservative media, and some members of the conservative media dug up his tweets, pulled them out, and were like, he's a terrible person, everyone should hate him.
And then Disney was
got
like,
cold feet,
well,
was like, we can't have that with our family-friendly brand, and then they fired him off of Guardians 3.
And then I feel like he was quietly
don't blame
rehired,
Disney
too.
for that.
It wasn't massive news when he got rehired either. The firing was everywhere.
I didn't even know about either of them because I don't care.
And then they
for James
rehired him
Gunn.
because they were like, we can't replace James Gunn. It's
impossible.
Well, and the controversy died down, which is so. Here's the thing about Disney, right? Disney is an evil corporation. Let's all be on the same
they're a
page.
monopoly now.
You can love Disney and understand that they are an
the
evil.
Fox merger is tragic.
They
as
own,
much as I'm excited for the X-Men being in the MCU possibly.
They
tragic.
own such a ridiculous amount of
The only
media
part
content.
they don't own of
Very
Fox
true.
now is Fox News, and they might not own Fox Sports either. But aside from that,
Well, they wouldn't care to own Fox
as
News,
Ben
but
said,
that's
they're
not the
evil.
point. They're evil. So the point that I'm getting at is that they're not human. Like, it's not a human company. Companies are not
it's
people.
run by a
Listen,
mouse.
people.
Companies are not
Hail
people,
Hydra.
no matter how much they might be treated in law like people. And the truth of the matter is that if they fired James Gunn because of those tweets that he made, it wasn't because he made the tweets, but because the tweets were affecting their PR.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was a
Yeah.
PR move, 100%.
So
and then they tried every alternative, and they couldn't get anybody else who.
and then the
could
and then
do
the
it, and
PR
said,
the
"Screw
PR
it."
problem died down.
Yeah.
So they brought him back on.
Yeah.
And they brought him back on quietly. And unless you cared about James Gunn, you wouldn't know.
And I think had Thor Ragnarok director Taika Waititi decided to take the job as he was apparently offered, it might have gone a different direction. But when he didn't, they were like, "That was our only real alternative." So.
Because he's the only person that could be remotely similar to James Gunn, both in
Right.
filmmaking, writing, whatever else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Besides, let's get some Asgardians of the
think they
Galaxy
both
with
suck.
Korg.
As Guardians of the Galaxy, I swear to God, if that's not what Volume 3 gets.
It's
As
gonna
Guardians
be.
of the Galaxy.
That's what it's gonna be. But
'Cause
let's
Thor's
get some
in it now.
Asgardians of the Galaxy with Korg. That's gonna be.
Have Korg
It's not
join.
happening, but that would be the single greatest addition.
I'm waiting
if
for
Taika
like
were to
I'm
do
waiting
it.
for Guardians 3 to like open up with like Thor and Quill like on like the couch in Rocket's ship like arguing about who's the boss while playing Fortnite and like
So
wrecking each other.
this is kind
We
of
could
like
just get a
He's gonna be-
Disney
and
Plus
Quill's gonna be
sitcom
like,
out of the
Quill's
two
gonna be
of
like,
them.
these controllers are so much more complicated than the Atari stick.
So, my friend Alex once told me, after watching The Last Jedi, that he was done with Star Wars, and I was like, "What? Did you not like it?" And he was like, "No, I thought it was great." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean you're done with Star Wars?" He's like, I'm done with it. I don't care to watch any more Star Wars movies." And it had baffled
After
me.
which Star Wars movie?
The Last
Last
Jedi. And it
I
wasn't
don't
that he didn't
understand
like
it in that place, but I understand.
Well,
the
yeah, and
position.
that's what I was confused about. I was like, "Well, didn't you like it?" And he was like, "Yeah, I thought it was awesome." And I was like, "Then why don't you want to keep watching them?" He's like, "I'm just done. I just I don't care to watch any more Star Wars." And he's kind of a character, so that's kind of like part of it. But I think I understand. I have superhero fatigue, and I think he had Jedi fatigue.
Yeah.
But I have superhero fatigue, and I don't really care to watch more MCU movies, to be honest with you. I'm gonna watch Spider-Man because I love Spider-Man. Like, I love Spider-Man with all of my heart. But
Well, and I think
I'm done.
I'm starting to set into somewhat of like superhero movie fatigue, even as somebody whose whole life has been so intrinsically linked to superheroes. And this is both like a sign of the times, but I think also still, at least for me, a testament to the MCU is that like I didn't go to see Shazam I might never see Shazam.
I'm probably never going to see Shazam.
I don't care.
I don't care either.
I don't care about DC anymore.
Yeah, but
like
that's
the DC movies, I just don't care. I love Batman. I worship at the altar of Batman,
I hate
but I
Batman.
never cared. I never watched past like the 3rd episode of Gotham. I don't care. Like I'm not gonna like I don't care for any of the CW shows. I like the first season of Arrow, but then it got really bad. I never watched The Flash. I watched the first episode of Legends and thought it was the most poorly written dumb shit I'd ever seen in my life.
It's gotten better. I can promise you that much.
I don't trust you, Odie.
So
I'm
like,
sorry.
but like, even like, as much as I love the X-Men, the characters and everything, and the whole like ideological part of the X-Men world,
yeah,
I am probably not going to see Dark Phoenix, and
I won't. I certainly
Dark
won't.
Phoenix isn't worth the trouble.
I'm not going to pay money for it. That's for sure.
Apocalypse was terrible. Like I don't care about those movies. However, I will see every MCU movie that comes out, and I don't see any end in sight. I'm super excited for Spider-Man. I'm super excited for whatever else comes next.
No, just
like
Spider-Man.
That's the thing, though. We have no idea what's coming next.
Right.
I hope.
We know
very
Doctor
little.
Strange has a sequel. We know Captain Marvel has a sequel. But the beauty is the unknown. Because we haven't had that for years.
I think that if Disney continues to make superhero movies,
I will see a Deadpool 3 though.
I wouldn't.
It's
I wouldn't
probably
even
going
see
to
a
be
Deadpool 2.
PG-13.
Fuck
You
Deadpool.
have to reconcile that information.
Deadpool 2 is awesome.
Deadpool 1 and 2 are both bad, and you will fight me about it.
One is great. 2 is good at best.
It's not great, and you guys can all hate me for it, but I think that movie is just a whole lot of shitty humor and not done well.
Well, so I'm fatigued on every superhero thing except the MCU, is what I mean. And
right, and
like,
I'm saying I'm even
superhero
fatigued for
MCU
that.
is still fighting it for me.
And what I was going to get at just now, before I was rudely interrupted. I'm just kidding, but what I was going to
really tense for like
no.
We're gonna have another roast Odie session.
Yeah, nobody said anything,
You guys
so I
are
was
about
like,
to throw
uh-oh.
hands.
No. I love you, Odie. I'm not trying to fight, but I think that like I don't want to see them, not end on a good note when they should have. Like I don't want them to beat a dead horse, and I think that's what the direction they're going in, and I think that can really sour my memory of a great movie like Endgame.
Well, and if nothing else, you can always look at this as the end. As like
this
one
is the
end.
end for me.
I know. Yeah. Well, and it's the end for like a lot of this world and this story too, though. Like if nothing else, even if every movie from this point out is terrible, you could at least go back to like. Yeah, but up to Endgame. Like, the story up to Endgame I can live with. Right?
I think if Disney were smart, they wouldn't release another MCU movie for at least 5 years.
I feel like, you know what?
That's a lot of money lost.
Everybody has said, you know what? They're going to do Secret Wars next or whatever storyline they do next.
No, they won't.
What I feel like they should do, because, of course, they had the first 3 as the Infinity Saga. You know what? Give them one more big storyline. Give them one thing to overarch 20 or so movies. But Kevin Feige needs to know when he's finished.
Just reboot
you need
it
to
with
finish
the
after.
X-Men.
Don't reboot shit. Just leave it because we don't know how to leave movies anymore.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like if they step away right now and there's no new movie releases in the MCU for at least 5 years. Think of how hungry people are going to be when another one comes out. Now,
I don't
think
know,
of the beauty between like
vampires.
Let's talk
vampires,
about
but how long was vampires a trend? Was that a 10-year long, 15-year long trend?
Like 5, 6.
Have vampires been a part of American culture since like the 20s?
Yes.
I don't know. Not the way that superheroes have. And I'm going to tell you what, Star Wars, people didn't step away from Star Wars.
True.
And I think that at this point, the MCU is at that level, and what the mistake that I see them making is that they keep pushing it until it fizzles out.
Like Westerns did.
Yeah. Right. And what I think they should do is they should take a breather, give the market some space, and come back with another huge blockbuster like
another
Endgame.
Avengers.
I mean, not even
another Avengers, but another look how many people we have. Look what we're doing with them.
And now that Disney owns such a huge portion of the market, they have the ability to not publish another superhero movie, and superheroes will end.
I would hope that they're be able to keep a lot of the same characters, though, because I feel like we still have so much more we can do with Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
But he's not around for much longer. They have 2 years left.
I agree.
But
even with Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange,
no, I agree.
There's so much more that can be done with Brie Larson's Captain Marvel.
I think there's more that can be done, but my question is not whether it can be done; it's whether it should be.
I want it to be.
You mentioned
as a
Star
fan,
Wars.
right? Like I'm not fatigued enough to like say goodbye to a lot of these characters. I didn't even want to say goodbye to Tony, and I've been hanging out with Tony Stark since I was 14.
Yeah, man, but like the problem is that you don't see wanting to say goodbye, you know? Like that's a thing that comes upon you. You know, you don't see it until it happens, and then all of a sudden you look back and you say, "Wow, I don't have the same reverence for these that I used to." And that, or wow, I've seen these a million times, and you know they just keep putting out more. It's like, and you know, I know you're a big video game guy, so maybe I can put it in like video game context. But like, look at Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed is a video game franchise that arguably is amazing from start to finish.
The first 3.
Shit's creepy.
Force.
Exactly.
Everything after 3 is bad.
But everything after
Come
3 is
on,
exactly the
Black
same
Flag's
with
good.
more.
Black Flag is the worst one they ever made, except maybe Unity.
All right, so we could argue about Assassin's Creed. It's actually kind of like Black Flag, but not as an Assassin's Creed game. Anyway, it's besides the point. What I'm saying is that
I can take it in video game terms as a huge Mortal Kombat fan because they made so many of those games for so long and they got really shitty, and then they just totally wiped the slate clean and restarted in 2011 with their rebooted Mortal Kombat, and all the games since then have been really good.
You mentioned Star Wars too, and Star Wars is an amazing example both of the good and the bad. Like,
I
think
I think The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi are amazing. The
I
Last
do
Jedi
too.
especially.
No, I mean,
I do too. But there was a breath.
Think about they took off. They didn't
Also, I'm saying you
completely
have a
take
point.
off,
Yeah.
but like that break between Revenge of the Sith and Force Awakens was only 10 years. But look at the explosion that happened when all you had was like
Well, it also
throwing a
helped
bone
that
with Clone Wars and Rebels.
that
And,
the prequels were god awful.
yeah,
and that
poorly remembered.
people were thirsty for Star Wars,
and
are
now
still
you're
thirsty for
exhausted
Star Wars.
after
Revenge
4
of the-
movies in 4 years.
You know,
No, I'm
Yeah.
not. Of
But I
Star
guess- I
Wars?
guess
No, I'm
Alex,
not.
I mean,
But-
is a good example of
Well,
people are getting
yeah.
exhausted.
to Ben's point, though, I guess like the hype that was there for The Force Awakens. Imagine if Revenge of the Sith had been Endgame good.
Yeah, I mean,
You know how
I think people would have still held the hype for a year or two, and I think if they continued to publish Star Wars content, I think people would have fell out of it. And the thing that happened with Star Wars is that the prequel series were a flop, and Star Wars existed on the fringe in the fandom. And they still published content. We had the Clone Wars 3D animated series, which was amazing, and we had a lot of
shit of expanded universe stuff.
and a shit ton of expanded universe stuff.
But
people
how many
like us
people
who are
genuinely
nerds.
care? Like
Ben and I did.
the extended universe stuff is good, but it's not all.
Well, some
like,
of it's shitty, but like
some
that's
of
not
it's
the point.
Shadows of the Empire, which is probably one of my favorite books in general, and some of it's absolute
Some of it's
garbage.
like
But
Jar
the
Jar
point is
Binks,
that
like,
stuff.
origin stories.
But that's the point that I'm making is that stuff existed for a niche market.
Yeah.
Star Wars is not targeting a niche market. Star Wars is a blockbuster summer movie for everyone. Well, winter, I guess, but for everyone.
Yeah.
That's what Star Wars is and what has always been. So after years and realistically many decades of only content for fans who are really, really into Star Wars, then they came out with The Force Awakens for everyone and it exploded. And I think that had after episode 6, they just kept making movies way back then, all the way up through the 90s and into the early 2000s.
Star Wars
I think
would
Star
be
Wars
dead.
it would not only be dead, but I think it would be remembered poorly.
Well, it's like Star Trek, right? Because there's only certain incarnations of Star Trek that are fondly remembered, like universally, like the original series.
and
the
who
Next
except the
Generation.
actual fan remembers every incarnation to begin with.
And how successful are major, audience Star Trek movies? They're successful,
Well, the
but they're
reboot
not
ones were pretty big, but they weren't Star Wars big.
right. And that's what I'm.
They
I'm
weren't
getting
that
at.
great
And
to
I
begin
would argue.
I loved them personally, but I also really like JJ's work.
I do too. But I think that when you look at like pop culturally, Star Trek is as important as Star Wars.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's reflected in the way that the franchises have been handled through the decades. Whereas, my point is just that I think, Disney is going down a dangerous road now. I think they've made their masterpiece. I don't think they're going to do anything better than Endgame.
However, I want
it.
15 Endgames next year.
Right, that's what you want, and I want them to stop. I want them to take a
They
step
should
back.
do what DC's been doing. Like, you have every team-up movie you can manage.
It's just weird.
Maybe
Step
they
back.
should do a limited series.
DC is doing what DC is doing because DC failed.
Yeah,
Right.
but
Marvel is the pinnacle
succeeded,
of success.
but they can't succeed
Right.
past what they have. So what they should do is essentially what they've done with Shazam.
Past the first Avengers, we thought that was the pinnacle.
I think they should probably.
I never thought. I thought that was the beginning, but that's just me.
Well, you were right.
Spider-Man, obviously, they're backing up, and that's just going to be Spider-Man doing his own thing.
I mean, think about it. In the pre-MCU years, like Spider-Man was the mascot of Marvel.
Yeah. Absolutely. Until the Avengers became the icons. People didn't listen. People didn't like Iron Man until Iron Man 1 came out.
That's why the MCU was such a risk. It was like, who gives a shit about Iron Man? Who gives a shit about Thor? Who gives a shit about Captain America? They were the B characters.
And what the the creators of those films realized is that, hey, these are the heroes' roots. These are not your 90s edgelord anti-heroes that we got. Well, that we got a million of.
I mean, take the 2004 Punisher and try to call him anything else.
I love that movie.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but
that's a movie I've seen
title.
about 25, 30 times.
TJ,
Thomas
you
Jane
are
has earned
squarely
the
whitest guy I've ever met in my life.
So to take it back,
I also love the 2000.
Alan's also pretty white.
I also really, really love the 2003 Daredevil with Ben Affleck.
Despite the fact that Ben Affleck doesn't like the 2003 Daredevil.
That movie's terrible.
And I think Ben Affleck is the definitive on-screen Batman and Bruce Wayne.
Interesting.
No comment.
And I say that as somebody who, again, has worshipped at the altar of Batman since I was an infant.
Yeah, but
I hate Batman.
No.
I just hate Batman. And you know what? It's not even Batman that I hate. I just hate people who worship at the altar of Batman.
Yeah.
I love you too, buddy.
So
TJ, you're the one exception.
To take it back to the previous point before you two murder each other with batarangs, I feel like...
I'll murder you with something, buddy.
Oh.
So...
It's getting hot here.
With Shazam, essentially what DC is saying is that we get it. You have no interest in Justice League. Let's step back and let's make solo movies again for a while. And they did the same with Aquaman, as far as I've heard, although I've yet to see either. But Spider-Man, he's taking a breath. He's doing his own thing in New York, what I feel like the MCU should do. Because another Endgame, as far as I'm concerned right now, is unreachable. You should step back, you should take a second to breathe, and you should focus on solo movies. Because that is what's going to work.
I think they should even cut out solo movies, because I don't think people are going to care about solo movies like they cared about Endgame. I think what they would be really smart to do is to invest in like a limited series or
do like genre stuff.
Yeah,
like explore characters like Moon Knight.
Yeah,
like a more
horror. Look at like the stuff like Logan and like The Dark Knight as guides for solo movies that could be different. Because I think that's where
I'm kind of really down for like a John Wick style Hawkeye movie now. Like
that would be cool.
John Wick style Ronin movie.
No,
Hawkeye. Ronin. All right, so
like a last 5 years Ronin movie would be pretty interesting.
No, all right. So like, here's my problem though, and this is a really nitpicky, and like, you're all gonna disagree with me. But like, I think Ronin looks dumb.
Oh no, he looks like a fucking idiot, but he's a good character.
I think his poses with the sword are dumb. Yeah. I think that Hawkeye,
he looks like Hawkeye's being Star Wars kid, but that could be an interesting character if they do it right.
I just don't see a way in which I would want to watch a movie with Ronin on the cover. But Hawkeye, on the other hand,
I could dig.
Hawkeye if he goes more comics oriented too.
I think if they just do a really, gritty,
because Clint Barton is very much a Tony Stark type in the comics. He's a sarcastic,
like a whole movie of him just being ultra violent Green Arrow.
Yeah, well, and if you could do a last 5 years Ronin thing, if you just don't give him the fucking sword, like let him use his bow and let him be Hawkeye.
Like, do a great. Since you mentioned him anyway, do like an Arrow thing with him. Watch this guy who was very much a family man in 2018 fall apart.
And the problem that we're going to get if they were to ever do something like that is that it would make the Hawkeye in Endgame impossible to appreciate.
Or you could do a limited series where you follow Hawkeye during those 5 years. I mean, it kind of ruins the ending, and that like what that eventually he's going to.
But like you also know that none of the character development that would happen to him in those 5 years, none of the traumatic shit that he'd seen would make any difference because he changes on the drop of a hat in Endgame. Like he literally goes from murdering people.
Pin particle suit, he's just a bro again.
Yeah, well, he shows back up with Nadia, and he's just like, I'm fine. I'm your guy again, guys.
I'll do it.
Black Widow took me back.
Just gave him a lullaby.
Yeah, no, it's and I think that if we were to watch a series where we watched Hawkeye's descent into like anti-heroism, like
it would feel Bad or it would be garbage.
No, I just think it would feel ingenuine because disgenuine.
I also kind of want like like a galaxy like buddy cop between like Nebula and Gamora.
That'd be cool.
Do you know what
I'd
the
watch
sad
that.
part is?
What?
You just described Green Lantern Corps,
Yeah.
starring Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan,
Yeah.
coming 2020.
But I just literally want like the two sisters and their little, relationship.
I would really like a Prowler movie. I think that would be really cool. Like
That
if
would
we
be cool.
if we could just see like a
See, Sony has all of Spider-Man's rogues gallery, and Prowler is still considered a Spider-Man rogue.
I mean, they do
Yeah.
get back. I'm hoping and assuming they're going to keep Tom Holland, but I think Marvel only has Spider-Man until 2021, and then he's being returned on a permanent basis. So they could very much put Tom
Now just
Holland
give us
in with
Amazing
any
Spider-Man
rogues.
3. Just go get Andrew Garfield
Fuck
back.
no.
that's funny.
Or give Sam Raimi a shot at a really old Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man
Yeah.
4.
My goodness.
Let's
You
just
love the
pull
Sam
him
Raimi
out of high
Spider-Man.
school.
I
Don't
love
you?
Sam Raimi, that's
Yeah.
why.
Let's just pull him out of high school, pull him out of college, and let's get like a legitimate adult Spider-Man.
Or get a live
after-
action adaptation of Into the Spider-Verse.
You know what?
Like
no,
10
that would be
years from
cool.
now.
That would be cool. You know what? You know what I would watch?
What?
Superhero movie wise, an Adventures of Arya Stark.
Yes.
Superhero movie.
I want like a really good like Spawn movie. Like I don't know if
Oh,
you've
I
ever
would
into
watch that.
Spawn.
Yeah, I know
Like
Spawn.
they had that really bad movie.
Spawn's
in
like
the 90s,
the
but,
Spawn's the most like iconic of the '90s anti-heroes.
he's the most iconic superhero who doesn't belong to Marvel. or
Isn't
DC.
Spawn like the original like Dark Horse anti-hero? Isn't that like his original like
Spawn
thing?
is Dark Horse, right?
Yeah, he's part of Dark Horse Comics.
Yeah, but like he's like the first one. Isn't he like the first anti-hero? Isn't that like his like claim to fame?
yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure, or one of them at least. But I'm pretty sure Spawn is like.
I didn't follow him super closely. I never really read any of his comics. I just remember watching the cartoon when I was a kid and the movie, and I had like a collection of like the McFarlane action figures.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I would really like to see a good X-Men movie.
Yeah. I also kind of want to see like I honestly like I know this is probably
Another good
blasphemy
How about
to say.
X-Men? Just go back to 2000 and stay there.
No, let's just see
Listen,
Logan
I know what I'm
again.
about to say is basically blasphemy, but I would really like to see a new take on Wolverine, like down the line.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like tomorrow or even next year or 2 years from now, but like when Hugh Jackman's version is enough,
Yeah.
like in the past, I
Yeah.
want to see like
I think it'll
young,
be a
new
long
version
time.
of Wolverine.
I think
I
we're gonna
apologize-
get
in a whole new X-Men world. I'm not saying
I
CJ
apologize in
Morgan made, like,
advance,
first class.
and I think I may have mentioned this on the MCU Roundtable. As far as I've heard, the current frontrunner for an MCU Wolverine is Keanu Reeves.
Right,
So
no,
Wolverine
I'm
is
not
about to
down
get
that.
fucked
I want like
up.
a 22-year-old,
Yeah.
like
So
edgy guy.
I think that like
And
what we're
somebody
gonna
who's
find
not
TJ,
actually 6 fucking feet tall.
is like 10 years down the line, we're gonna be like hanging out with our kids and talking about how like
how Endgame was so spectacular.
right. Well, we're gonna be talking about how no one will ever be Wolverine like Hugh Jackman was Wolverine.
Yeah. When
and
you're
our kids
taking
are gonna
your
be
kids
like
to the first
rolling their
Wolverine
eyes.
movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what's gonna end up happening.
The way that we rolled our eyes at like our older brothers and parents who were like, you know, the only real Joker is Jack Nicholson.
Right. Yeah. No. I think that's exactly
Yeah.
what's gonna happen.
What blasphemy did you just give Cesar Romero?
Oh, his fucking mustache Joker because he wouldn't shave it. It's just caked up in white makeup and his
Oh
mustache.
God. Let's not remember
Sarah's like,
that.
I don't know what the hell's going on right now.
Sarah's been lost for. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I
Sarah's been
know.
lost for like an hour.
Poor Sarah. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Sarah.
I mean, I was gonna add something before, but I forgot what I was gonna say because we went to a different topic.
No, you got to be assertive. All right,
Oh,
we're
okay.
a bunch of like testosterone-y, masculine dudes. Don't be afraid to tell us to shut the fuck up.
You need to be our Captain Marvel. Like you need
Yeah.
to represent the girl power on this podcast.
Or our
right
Lyanna
now.
Stark.
Yeah, or well,
No, the three of us need to just trap Sarah in a room for 3 days, and we all need to watch the full MCU together.
No,
as much as I
gross. Don't. No, thank you.
As much as I don't want to see Dark World again, or don't want to see Incredible Hulk in its
you
entirety,
can use my cardboard cut
Ben,
and
I
cut
think
out
this would be a
Thanos.
really fun Your Boom is in the Shot event down the line for us to do like an MCU rewatch.
I mean, all right.
Everything back
so
to
I remember
back to
way
back.
I talked about doing like an MCU or a Your Boom is in the Shot movie club.
Yeah.
I think this could be a really fun thing where we like pick a few and like stream them and then have people like talk about it while we watch them or while we have them on the stream
Like a live
in the background.
commentary.
Yeah. And then
do your own mystery
I think that
science
would
theater.
be fun.
Like we could do it like phase 1, you know, or something.
Yeah, I think that could be fun.
Yeah.
I still really like the idea of visiting classic movies or like older movies.
Like
Maybe-
Rosemary's Baby.
Not even. No, I mean, I was thinking more like 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Okay. You gotta watch.
That was fucking
Listen,
cruel.
guys, we gotta watch that really old movie, The Empire
Oh
Strikes
God.
Back.
Oh God.
But like, I don't know, like we could watch like some good movies, some bad movies. We could watch like the Dune film adaptation.
Oh, directed by
David Lynch.
yeah.
And like talk about how terrible those are. But I mean, I think that would be cool, like Mulholland Drive. And
No, you wanna
Mulholland
Fucking
Drive.
trip.
Yeah.
You want to go really terrible.
Can't
Not
even
that I
fucking say
don't like this movie and I'm the one person on the planet that isn't Kevin Smith that likes this movie. Yoga hosers, if you want to go
Oh my
really
God. Stop
bad.
talking about yoga
bad.
hosers.
Like, listen,
What even
I
is
like
that?
I like
movie.
more Kevin Smith movies
Which
than
you
I
could
don't,
probably-
and I like Kevin Smith. Like, I'm a fan of Kevin Smith as
But
a
I'm the
person.
one person on this planet that likes that movie that
No, it's
isn't
bad.
Kevin Smith.
It's bad. However, like his couple movies before that, a lot of people don't like, were actually pretty good, like Tusk.
Red
and
State.
Tusk is a weird fucking movie.
but it's great for what it is. And like
Yeah.
Red State's actually like really
Tusk
not
is
a
an
terrible
amazing
story.
movie to sit down and watch with your parents and then, what the fuck did you just show me,
no,
kid?
I was thinking we could do like Do the Right Thing by Spike Lee. That's like one of my favorite movies, and I would
Yeah.
love to do like just a reason to go back
Just
and
do a
watch it.
director thing. You guys should like
Green
sit
Book,
down.
it's not that old, but like it's one of the ones we didn't get a chance to do on the podcast, and I think Green Book would be an excellent topic to talk about, and maybe get like the perspectives of some of our audience, because I think you'd get a lot of.
Watch Casablanca. I know you love that.
I do love Casablanca, but I think that there are a lot of people who might not be interested in going back and watching a movie that's quite that old.
There's gotta
especially
be-
at least
yeah.
our audience.
There has to be a lot of audience for like your specifics too, like doing Kevin Smith film thing for TJ, or
Yeah,
if you went back and like you mentioned, because I was asking you specifically about it, like Ang Lee or Cohen's, like if you were to run through some stuff like that, that would be absolutely.
I don't really
amazing.
like anything Ang Lee's done.
Oh no, that was
especially the
stuff
whole-
Ben said.
Oh, okay.
I
You,
don't.
the first thing I think of is Blunt Man.
The Coens,
I don't remember talking about Ang Lee at all,
and
but I'm sure
only,
it's
like,
possible.
The only Coen Brothers movies I've actually seen are Buster Scruggs, Hail Caesar, and
You know what we should do? We should do a Bong
Lebowski,
Joon-ho,
wasn't
I think that would be
Yeah.
a cool special to do. We could talk about Snowpiercer
talk
and
about
like
I love Snowpiercer.
and
I can
Okja.
talk about Snowpiercer all day.
Yeah, me too.
Speaking of Chris Evans.
and Okja, I could talk about that for a long time also.
Yeah, Okja's a weird movie.
Okja's a really good movie.
Snowpiercer is an amazing,
Snowpiercer's even better.
an awesome metaphor on society
just like,
and classes.
I don't know
Yeah,
what that is.
but it's got Chris
Science
Evans
fiction.
and Tilda Swinton.
Tilda Swinton made an appearance in Endgame.
Yeah, she did, and it was a really weird, kind of somewhat plot holy one, but
Yeah.
it worked because I'm here for Tilda Swinton.
And honestly, every
Especially
time
after Ben and I saw
think
that reboot
Suspiria,
of Suspiria. I'm
you know
here for
what?
Tilda
I
Swinton.
think that if there's one thing that we can always agree on, I think that if there's one actor that we love, that this podcast loves, it's Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
I think Tilda Swinton, we love you. I hope that one day you hear an episode of our podcast. And honestly, so like this is kind of a little bit off topic, but I ended up getting that Game of Thrones flag that I messaged you
Nice.
so that we can put it up at the back when we do our video
my
episodes.
dude.
I think we should also get like a Tilda Swinton poster. Like we should just get a whole
her,
collection
all
of.
three characters that she plays.
Get
in
a Tilda
Suspiria.
Swinton
Suspiria.
poster and just like dangle.
But it would
boom
be
from
really
the
cool.
ceiling.
It would really cool. Like, all right, so guys, we're going to be doing video stuff at some point in the near future.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it for
We
months.
may or may not have something with video that might have our friend Sarah, who's sitting at the table, coming out soon.
Oh yeah, that would be pretty cool. Sarah,
Yeah.
also known as Queen Halo.
Was that a shameless plug?
There's no shame in self-promotion.
Well, it wasn't self-promotion because I promoted her. So
right?
like
See,
you know,
see.
Oh, yeah.
There's no shame in
But that'd
forcing
be cool
others
if you
to
guys
self-promote.
like video it.
yeah.
Did the video.
So I forgot to introduce Sarah with this when we started the episode. So I'm sorry, Sarah. This is my bad. But Sarah actually has a YouTube channel. And she has like 40,000 subscribers, and her name is Queen Halo, and she's awesome, right? That's
Yes.
yes. Okay, I'm just
Thank you for
making
that.
sure
Hail.
I'm not. You guys should totally check her out. If for those like 20 of you that are listening to this, we might actually have more. We're probably going to have almost 100, but you know,
Hey man,
Who knows?
The
We could have
MCU
more.
Roundtable got like over 100.
Yeah,
on
so-
YouTube.
And I'm
We
gonna send
might.
mine over to theirs.
yeah. All right, so you know, who knows? We could have like
Hell
20,000.
While we're here, follow German Dirty Talk Band on Instagram if you want to hear some shitty blues and rockabilly.
I guess we could plug you too, Odie, even though you're not related to media content that's visual at all.
Let's just do some shameless self-promotion. Fuck it. I got garbage music. Let's put it out there.
Odie, tell the audience. I don't know about it, so tell the audience. Because I am actually going to check it out after the show. I didn't realize you had your own anything.
So,
the way you phrased it.
I'm sorry. Guys, I really like Odie. I'm sorry I've been coming off really mean to him all night.
I'm going to be completely honest. I've been on at least 2 or 3 different programs between you guys, Radio St. Rose, whatever, and I'm like, you know what? When's the time I can make a shitty self-promotion joke?
This is it right now.
This is it, yeah.
Follow German Dirty Talk Band on Instagram or facebook.com/German Dirty Talk if you want to hear some just like bare bones, guitar, keyboard, drums, vocals. That's it. Like rockabilly, blues, alternative. We are everything. We are nothing.
You know what, Odie? I'm gonna check out some of your music, and if it's good, we might even consider using a song as our intro for this episode. If you're interested in letting us do that.
Absolutely.
All right, I will look into it. I can't make any promises. TJ's our editor, so he might be like, "Fuck that." But I'm gonna say it's something that I have just now decided that I'm considering. So.
Consider that a privilege.
So yeah, consider that a privilege. I mean, yeah, that's that. So I think we're gonna wrap it up here for the episode for tonight.
Endgame was amazing.
Endgame was
perfect.
It really was.
It wasn't perfect, but it was
12
good.
out of 10.
Perfect emotionally.
8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I would give it a 9 out of 10.
Heckin' good movie. 15 out of 10.
And I'm barely below you. 8.5 is
8.5 out of 10 for a Marvel movie. Ben, I never thought I'd hear those words come out of your mouth.
Well,
for a Marvel movie that isn't Black Panther.
Black Panther gets a 9. So Black Panther gets a 9 on me. And Endgame gets an 8.5, and the next highest up movie is off the top of my head. I don't know, but it's probably
Iron Man 1.
Yeah, and that's probably at like 7.5. Yeah. So there we go.
Damn,
and I hope we have you guys on the show again. You're always a pleasure, Odie. And Sarah, you were a little quiet in this episode, but I'm sure we'll find something a little bit more to your taste.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm tired. It's been a long day.
No,
but I would love to be on this podcast again for any other film
and if you enjoy
that I know
our show,
more about.
Thank you for joining us, Sarah. Like, despite like your limited knowledge of Marvel and everything, like just having like the
I had known
that's why it's hard to get in a
pick.
That's why I haven't added a lot because I don't have the context.
And I had known that you hadn't seen Infinity War. I knew that, but I didn't realize
you said
that
it's not a good one either.
No, I think it's one of the worst.
The only
it's awesome. You can borrow my Blu-ray.
I'm not the only person. I'm just the only person who's a fan of Marvel who says that.
You can totally borrow my Blu-ray if it still plays after how many times I've watched it.
You know who doesn't like Infinity War? Dr. Kim. Dr. Kim doesn't like Infinity War.
I love Dr. Kim.
I love Dr. Kim too. So does TJ.
I do.
We all love Dr. Kim here.
5 of his classes.
We're gonna get. I took 4. I would take 5, but I was,
You missed out on media criticism.
I did miss out on media criticism and game studies, which
and horror.
You also missed out on, but I got to take sci-fi, so that's fun. Yeah. Anyway, I think right next to our Tilda Swinton poster, we should get a Dr. Kim poster.
Yes.
That would be pretty fun.
I'm about it.
I'm about it too. We should have him on the show sometime.
Yeah,
that might look kind of scary though, like a Dr. Kim poster.
Because
that would
how would he be posed?
No, he would be doing his clap with his foot out. I think that's the only way.
I love how you think you could have a Your Boom is in the Shot episode that wouldn't just be talking about comp theory the entire time. If
Dr. Kim was on our show, we would be talking about science fiction movies.
That's by reputation only. I am the only person
honestly
in this booth who has not had a class with him. But
I am confident that if we had Dr. Kim on an episode.
All
right, so here's my thing, right? You guys don't know Dr. Kim. Dr. Kim's one of the media professors at the College of St. Rose. We've all had him, except maybe Odie.
Me.
He's a great guy, and he's incredibly knowledgeable, and he has very similar taste in film to me and TJ, and me even more so than TJ, I think, in some ways, and in other ways, I think more. Whatever.
Yeah.
Point is, having talked to him, I think that if you were on our show, I think all he would do is gush about movies the same way we do.
Yeah.
And he might bring up
he would gush like me
stuff
and be really hypercritical like Ben.
Yeah, I think he would I think that's and I would say I didn't like something and he'd be like and then he would be like, why not? And then I'd say it and be like, oh.
Yeah, literally. I wonder if he'd use like buzzwords, like things vocab. It's paratext. Buzzwords.
I suspect he'd be more likely to ask us questions on why we have the opinions we have. My experiences with Dr. Kim is that he likes to say what he's interested in, but he's really interested in seeing what other people are.
He's very open.
Yeah, I love Dr. Kim. We were talking about Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams a few weeks ago, and I told him that I had just watched the whole thing, and he was like, "Oh my God, which episode was your favorite?" And we were going on, and I was, and you know, I know he likes the show, and more than talk about the show, what we really did was like I would say which episodes I liked and why, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that was great. That was, you know, great." I think if you were on the show, he might give a little bit more of his personal opinions, but I also don't know that he'd want to be on the show. But anyway, that's a digression. That might be a treat for future boom operators, Dr. Kim as a special guest.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. And we are signing off now. Thank you again for having
me.
Us on your show, Sarah. Yeah. This is your show now. We give up.
Hi.
Oh, man. All right. Good night, everybody.
All right, we got to start.
Good night.
R.I.P.